Today, we're going to make a scrapbook layout based on your requests. One of our viewers, I believe it was Sharon, requested that I remake the layout that I'm putting on the screen right now. I made this at a retreat. It was a class, and the layout I'm showing was actually me making it a second time because I just fell in love with making that layout. So now I'm making it a third time. I'll put a little different twist on it, but the basic layout will be the same. The layout I'm going to make, along with the instructions, are on the Creative Memories blog at blog.creativememories.com, renamed The Pages. The post is from January 29th, 2026, and you'll find the majority of the instructions on that website. But I will be adding a little something to my layout today. But there is a difference between what the blog explains and what I'm going to show today. And that's because of paper selection. On the blog, they are showcasing the Natural Beginnings paper collection. I'm choosing different papers. And so I want to talk you through choosing the papers because while I'm not doing this with only scraps today, this is a fantastic layout design for using your scrap papers. And sooner or later, I will get around to making this yet again with all scrap papers. Now, the reason I'm not using scrap papers today is because of my photos, and I really wanted papers that were going to be a good match to my photos, and I found that with this paper collection. The Creative Memories Through the Years Designer Paper Pack was a special edition. This one is for 1920s and 30s, and they go by these decades, the 20s, the 30s. There's another paper pack for the 40s and 50s, and quite up through the 90s, I believe. They are still available. They come 6 sheets to a pack. So I gave them a try, not expecting much, but I actually fell in love with them, and I've purchased a few more. And so that's part one. I wanted these papers. I wanted the red in the paper, the black in the paper, the gold in the paper, the gray in the paper. They're all papers that are in the photo. Even this green matches my shirt well, but when I came up with my final choices, the green didn't make the cut, but that's okay. So what I have pulled out here are the papers from through the years 1920s and 1930s. And I've augmented this with a few scraps. Here's one, here's another, here's another. And the reason is the first thing you're going to need will be 7 strips of paper. Of the 7, 4 of the strips will need to be 2 inches wide by 12 inches, and 3 of them need to be 1 inch wide by 12 inches. And so the important step is to get your paper in the order you think you're going to want to see those bands of paper to be in. And so I'm planning to use the black paper as sort of a background. I'm not sure, but I think the black will be my background. I'm treating it as a background. I may get some cardstock. I most likely will get cardstock. But against my black, I want gold to be the first wide band that's going to be at the top. And so after that wide band, I'm going to want something to be a narrow band, and I've got this scrap of black lava paper that I think goes really good. And so my wide bands are approximately 2 inches. So I'm going to kind of simulate something 2 inches. And oh, by the way, if you want, you could just make this whole layout with nothing but straight strips. But you know, I'm going to pull out a punch before it's over with. Then I think I want my next color to be red. And I'm going to put the red down here at about an inch. And it's going to be my next wide band. And then my next narrow band, I'm going to put this beige paper. Now this was a scrap and this was a scrap. I think this scrap came from What a Zoo 2. And this was the lava paper. Recently, there was a special on the lava solid colors, and they are just amazing. And then my next wide color, I want to be this gray. And then after this dark gray, I want to put this, a strip of this light gray, which it came from the gradients. So this light gray paper was a scrap that came from the gradients. And then my final wide piece is this gold, which is from the Through the Years. So my Through the Years paper is this gold, this gray and white paper, this red, and then I'll be using this black up here. Now that's just to show me how these colors bands are going to look together. So I'm going to kind of put my photos near these to see if I like that. And the answer is yes, even though the bands on the final version are really going to be sitting much lower. And the reason I have the black up here is because these are actually going to be sitting more on the black. So now I have my papers in the order that I want them to be. And you know what I need to do? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to write down the order I want these in, because I'm going to have to do some trimming. These are full sheets of paper and they're going to get trimmed down. Some of these I'm going to only use, for instance, this piece of paper, I'm using both sides. I don't need two sheets of it. I just pulled out the second sheet so that I could visualize what all my strips would look like and not cut it and then say, I didn't even want that. For instance, this green I thought would go in here, and I'm not going to use the green at all. It's going to stay gold, black, and red. And for now, because we'll see what other things we add to this. I'm expecting some more. Okay, so I have this little index card here. So I'm going to write down my colors. So I now have my 4 2-inch pieces identified and my 3 1-inch pieces identified. And now I can get all of this cut and arranged, and I'll be back with my strips and we'll start the next phase of the layout. So we're back now with our strips cut, and I want to show that I cut the red band from the bottom of this paper. It was double-sided. I want to preserve this top because I'm actually going to be using it, and that's where my photos are going to be sitting. Of course, with a little twist. So I'm going to put this aside and bring it back when I'm ready. And I've decided to pull out a refill page. So if you were using the kind with the jeeping, that would work also. And I'm going to use that to kind of gauge my page. And I'm going to sort of dry fit this together now. So it starts with the gold, and then the black molten lava, and then the red, the gray shell, the dark gray, the gray net, and finally the gold. And so this is kind of where we're looking right now. And once again, I'm making sure that I like the order that I have placed this in. Now, once we start punching, this is going to shrink down and just take about half as much space on the page. But I really like this, and boy, oh boy, I already want to make it again. So next comes the fun part, okay? We're going to take our 2-inch strips, and we're going to take the Sunrise Scallop border punch. So we're going to use the Sunrise Scallop border punch, and we're going to cut our 2-inch strips. We're also going to need Post-it notes. So we're going to take each one of our 2-inch wide strips, and we're going to put them in our border maker system. And because they don't extend all the way over to the bar, we're going to use Post-it notes to hold them in place while we are cutting. And pull down the tray. Okay, so we're now going to cut down our Sunrise Scallop on the first side of our 2-inch wide strip. Next, we're going to turn our paper around so that our scallops are facing inwards towards our tool. And now we have an even more narrow piece to work with. So once again, we're going to use our Post-it notes to hold in place our paper. And now we're going to carefully cut our second side. And this is what our scalloped bands look like. So next, I'll cut the other 3 bands. Now here are our 4 2-inch strips that have been cut down with the Sunrise Scallop Border Maker cartridge, and I think they are just beautiful. So I'm going to give you one hint when creating these scallop bands with the 2-inch wide paper. When you're using your tray for your border maker cartridge and you're putting in the Post-it notes, when you are punching, hold the blue bar firmly, put some firm pressure on that so your paper doesn't slide. Now, I did not have that problem while I was doing it with this punch and these papers, but it's a good practice for any time you're using post-it notes especially. But for all of that, just a good firm pressure. You don't have to squeeze it tightly, but just whatever you can do to keep your paper steady and still while you are punching. So the instructions say to put the bottom of your lower scallop 1/4 inch from the bottom edge of the page. I'm going to dry fit everything before I begin adhering it down. Then you take your next strip, you sort of tuck it in underneath that strip, just making sure that the base paper, in this case the white paper, doesn't show. And then you take your next scallop and you place it on top of the scallop so that the tips kind of touch, and what is coming through underneath is the strip of 1-inch paper that you just put down. And then you keep sort of placing this up. And that just looks so gorgeous. I love it. So now I am going to repeat this and use good old repositionable to adhere it all down so it will stay. So I'm going to show my technique for putting these down. I've done it a couple of times, and what I'm going to do is I put adhesive on the top and the bottom right now of my scallop border. So I'm going to adhere the scallop to that 1-inch piece first. And the reason I'm doing that is so that it will be a single piece. So now I have this one piece, and now I'm going to adhere all of this down. And so it says to put the bottom scallop piece 1/4 inch from the bottom edge. So I'm going to put this lower corner here and here at the 1 inch. And now I'm putting these two pieces down together. I'm next going to take the same and do the same thing with these two pieces. I'm going to first put adhesive on my top of my scallop border. Then adhere the scallop border to the 1-inch band. So I'm adhering the top of my scallop to my 1-inch band, and just enough so that the edge doesn't show, the edge of the 1-inch band doesn't show. And now I've made one piece. And now I can put this piece with the next piece, lining up the peaks of the scallops and putting it down as one piece. And the next two are the red and the black. And this gold is going to be our last piece. But you know what? I'm not going to adhere it down just yet because I plan to put something underneath it, I think. But let's see. Okay? So this is basically the base page of this layout design, and I love it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a fantastic way to use some scraps. That's why I plan to make it yet again. But the the layout doesn't really do much up here. And in the first two iterations, I really didn't do much. I think I put a little strip up here. But the reason I wanted to keep this is because I think I want to put a frame using this paper on the top half of this layout. That's why I'm not adhering this down, because um, I would want it to go sort of like this, but with a little bit of the white showing around it. So that's sort of what I'm going for. And then have my photos. I'll probably trim my photos in white with a white mat around them. And that's kind of the look I'm going for. And then I'll decorate some more down here. And I also have one more picture of my buddy Bumblebee to put on here. But you know me, I can't just do simple. Now from the top of this scallop band, I have just under 6 inches to work with up here. So I could cut this piece of paper, say down to 5 3/4 of an inch, and that would give me 1/4 of an inch down from the top, and then I could cut it over this way, and that would be beautiful. So I have 10 inches by 12 inches of paper because I cut 2 inches off the bottom. There's nothing special or magic about that. And that is more than enough. I'm going to cut the whole square. And the reason is I probably will cut it off about right here at 6 inches and tuck a little bit of it underneath. And then take what's left of the square at the bottom and probably make another layout with it. Now, I also thought of cutting a second piece and having this matted, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think that this is the right way to go. This is the jumbo square custom cutting template, and on its inner side square shape is curvy. There's another one that has the outer shape square curvy. So I'm going to use my red blade, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this wavy square. This is about going to give me a square roughly 9 inches square. And I used my peel in place tape to keep my template nice and steady, so I don't have to fear my paper and template shifting on me if I have to retrace a spot. That I'm still putting pressure on my template. But when you get some of these more detailed custom cutting designs, having the freedom to move about, let's see, okay, so right over here we need a little bit more, and I'm not at all concerned about picking up my blade and putting it back, other than to make sure I get those little feet in there properly. And we need a little more right there. And I just keep going around to see where. Okay, need a little more over here. Okay. Looks like we need a little bit up here. And just a bit in that corner. I think I heard it. And there we go. It's free. And it's an interesting look. I'll also say the negative space here is really cute. There's probably something I could come up with to use that. Okay, so here's my choice. I can put this here. And put my photos here. I could put all of this up a little higher. Now, the way these photos printed, there's this little teeny white bit at the top and the bottom, and I do want to trim that away, but I also feel that I want a white mat around the photos. As I'm looking at this with these two 4x6 photos, I feel that this squarish shape, this curvy square, is more like 8 inches, not 9. So I have one more choice to make. Do I want this here, or do I want this to kind of settle in underneath? We're just going to pretend. Oh, that's cute too. And so in my opinion, I think I do want to cut off a little bit of the bottom here and just tuck this underneath the gold piece here. I cut this piece, our square with the curvy edges, down to 6¼ inches. And I'm going to place it right here against our black molten lava 1-inch strip. And then I'll be able to place the final scallop border right over top of it. And then I did have to trim down my 4x6 photos a little bit, and they just barely fit. This mat is 8 1/8 of an inch wide, and about 6 1/8 inches tall. And so I had trimmed off a little bit, about a 1/16 of an inch on all four sides to get this, and I like that. And then Bumblebee is going to go right here. I'm going to put him at an angle, but I just want one more thing. And so I said, if there was ever a time to use this punch, this is the gear wheel punch. This is the perfect layout to use it on. And I'm going to cut this with some more of the molten lava paper that I have. I don't see myself adding additional embellishments on the page because in this case, this is a case where I feel that the paper is the embellishment. And I like that. I really like my layouts that don't need a whole lot of extra stuff. I think all of this scallop design, whether it's around the square scallop or our scallop bands, I think this border is going to jazz it up just enough without overshadowing everything else. And that should do it. So I'll be right back. And this is our final layout. We have adhered the photos down, and I just added this simple title with the one word Bumblebee, and I cut the gear wheels border punch with the molten lava black paper, and it just went on perfectly. It gave the perfect decoration to the page without overshadowing any of the other parts of the layout. And I'm just thrilled with it. And Bumblebee is my favorite Transformer, so I am really happy to have this layout completed. I'm hoping that you enjoyed having this viewer's choice video made, and I'm reaching out to you to give me more ideas of what you would like to see me make, whether it came from one of my layout shares or something else I've said or shown in some of my videos, or an idea you've come up with yourself, especially if there's a technique that you would like a few hints and tips about. I would love to give it a try for you. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video and will give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And YouTube says here's another video, and I hope you'll watch it. Have a great scrappy day.